for 2019 dinner, but at the last minute he fell ill, so that never came to pass. However, the seed was sown by George that our senior members were full of interesting memories, which should not be lost. So I thought it would be of interest to continue the idea. Today, I'm delighted to have John Fielden with us. So welcome, John. Very glad to see you here. So maybe it'd be a good thing to start by just letting us know where and when you started with.
Well, afternoon, Simon, and afternoon, everyone coming. I started bringing in Walsden. Walsden was a little village just outside Tottenham. You might have heard. Tottenham was at that time fully in Yorkshire. Prior to 1880, it had been half in Lancashire, which is why the Lancashire Association actually had closer connections with the Yorkshire Association. And I learned to ring up Walsden in the summer of 1956. And I learned to ring with a fellow called Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson, that you know well.
Yes.
Currently rings in Brighton and was vicar in Paddington for 10 years. And he's a member of the society. May even be an infidel. His birthday is exactly 2 weeks after mine, so it is 2 weeks today. And as David, ever the mathematician, David Barrett said to me, 81 is actually a more significant number than 80. Because 81 is 9 squared and 3 to the power 3. It's not 3 to the power 4.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's about it. We learned to ring at the Walsden. We were both in the choir, Bill and I. The choir master called was also the chief ring, if you could call it that. But he dragged us up the tower and brought us through. And we progressed quite well. And in Tottenham, there were 4 sets of 8 bells, each by different founders. Walsden were by Blues of Birmingham. Complete ring, very unmelodious. Crossed home, equally like 8, like Carlos Smeddy, not Carlos and Carlisle, but and then there was a Unitarian church. They were all Steinbeck bells. And finally, there was Christ Church, which had, according to Andrew Wilby, one of the first completely Simpson-Tube 8s by Taylor. And of course, they, when the church was done, they went to form the back 8 toaster. Which everybody appreciates the Lord as well. So that's what we learned to do. And the ringers in government were graced us to join their practice, and that's they were all tower bells. So quite quickly started going around in the master. We joined the family of ringers, and that's where I first met on Frost, sat in his chair last year or the year before. And Ramblin' Ringers was supposed to be a cycling on Thursday from the car. But the second year, we cycled through Dublin. 3 days it took us to get to London. We cycled through London, joined the Ramblin' Ringers in Bedding, and then spent 3 weeks cycling in Hampshire. And then I think we cycled back, I can't remember. After that, or someone gave me that, but I don't really think we took our bikes in the car. But I don't remember cycling that. So that was in terms of tower field ringing. Well, that's different. Tottenham had 3 valleys. One valley ran to the south, went to Manchester. One line went to the north west and went to East Lancashire and Burnley. And one went into Yorkshire, Belfast, Bradford. And right in the middle, that is eight and a lot of key towns. One of them was called Big Scotland. Not a relative of Jones. In fact, spelled the name of an L, Scotland. He had a car. In those days, cars were not very common, talking about in the late 50s. Ordinary millions didn't usually have cars. He had a car. He was about 8 years old. And he worked in Manchester. He worked at an ICI research company in the north of Manchester. But also working there was a fellow called Derek Ogden. And through that good connection, Peter was a he liked talking to people, he liked negotiating with people. As a ringer, he was average, but he was keen. That helped a lot. He persuaded Derek to call my first pitch. Should have been stepping in the full metro, but I mind it. But Derek called my second field. And that was the start of us, the connection with the Manchester passing on the line. But because Peter couldn't drive, had a car, that had some flexible hours, I suspect, he was able to drive to East Lancashire afterward. Norman Smith. I was still in school then. But as I said, I did not have cycling. So I could cycle to Accrington for an evening pickup. But cycling back in the dark when there was no street lights, no things, with him. So instead, I got the bus to Burn and had to live with Norman Smith. So it all worked very much. And it was those journeys with Norman Smith between his house and Burn and Accrington, when he chatted to me about composition he was using. That sparked my interest in composition. Not that I understood really what he was saying, but I tried to make a note of it. Subsequently, did have some success. So that's how it started. But those two connections were the first ones to introduce me to splars, and Derek was the one who did that. But just to finish off with geography, the Peter was also keen to network into Yorkshire, and discovered that in Bradford they had a keen local band under the care of his dad, Howard Schofield. Peter recognised that if there was any ringing, Harold would go. So he drew Harold into ringing a few fields. Harold would go to town going on Saturday because he worked on the markets. But it wasn't long before Jill, Fenwick, and I, and Peter, were off on Saturday, bringing in towers and fields. First people around Jill was at Crossstone in Tottenham, and the band included Norman Smith, Derek Ogden, who were us, Peter Jarrett, good friend, Peter Schofield, organised that. Derek got towards quite a lot of my early periods. So that was how we met, through Peter's networking. What should I say now?
So the Manchester ringing scene, I mean, I almost think that there was what happened with Norman Smith was one thing, but there was also the Manchester ringing scene.
Well, that's right. Well, as I perhaps mentioned earlier, Derek was keen on not just simply ringing play methods, but in ringing some spliced. And I remember we went, the first time I recall ringing anything other than a single method with them, we went for 42 doubles methods. We didn't score, and I don't suppose we got very far because none of us had ever run doubles before. We do some odd things in doubles that you don't do in major doubles. So we didn't go for it again. And that was Norman, Derek, Peter and me, and Derek Butterworth. Then Derek Ogden decided he'd try some plain major. At the time, there was a fellow called George Fern, not George Fern from Birmingham, the Burton Taylor in Lincolnshire, spelled F-E-I, I think, R-N. And so we did quite a bit of, Derek did some compositions based around some technical, but just funny front work, instead of the dodging on the front, funny front work. And we rang up to 55 methods, 55 methods. But he was really more keen on splice than surprise major. And there weren't that many available compositions in those days. But Pippin had some, Eric Critchley had some. There were virtually nothing in the older work field. And we soon sort of plowed through the old research and 3D course series of things. And by that time, in the Manchester area, Eric would be ringing master at the 8 Bell Tower, St. Peter's in Ashton. He drew in some up and coming youngsters like Rich Holcross, Christine Andrew, and a few who were ringers at the 12 Bell Tower. Neil Bennett, I think, was also included, but I think his loyalties were at the 8 in Ashton. And we started bringing these fields, a lot of them on Sunday afternoons, and I would cycle from home to Ashton on the line, go to either Rick's or Neil's parents, have a bit of lunch, and go on in the afternoon. All worked very well. But Derek was keen to move on and felt perhaps there was a void in the loyal field. And the ninth field, 4 spliced, 6 spliced, 8 spliced. And I remember the field of 6 spliced water was at Manchester. It was in the summer of 1961. A fellow called Fred Wilcott was in the back, he was in North Staffordshire. I turned up and we stood outside the tower. Fred got out this bit of paper, not much bigger than postage note. And on it were a few squares. And some of the squares had an X in them. Fred explained to us all that the X was backward. The one we were playing was forward. And this was a half lead of London oil. I can tell you it was a good handle, so it was a connection. And he said, that's how I'm going to bring the London Saturday. We're in 6 months. As I recall it, he didn't go up, but I mean, he might have, but he didn't make a complete hash of it by any means. So I was really impressed. But that was the first time I met Tudor Edwards, because I was just about to go to university. And he was then living in Liverpool. And that field of Manchester just sort of cemented the opportunities that were going to be presented to me in Liverpool when I went there. And it also meant, as an aside, because he'd been at Bristol University, but he was very keen and keen for the rest of his life to attend Bristol University Society dinner. So I first met Tony. So we scored these fields of law, but at the same time in Yorkshire there were 2 separate bands ringing Splendid Court. Eric Critchley had a band, But eventually went on with Donald Nicholas, doing the compositions, went on to ring 42, 3-part and 42 methods. And I think Derek felt that rather than challenge had been arranged with them to get there first, he tried something, trying 12. And at that time, the record number of methods in the field, 12, had been set by the Leicester band early in 1950s when Harold Poole was still alive. They run 12 methods with compositions by Pittman to start with, and then Kenneth Gore afterwards. So Derek did this composition of 18 methods, which was scored at the town hall. We've drawn in some of the sort of the long-standing Cheshire 12-bell band, Ken Lewis and John Worth, that sort of thing, to boost the experience, the less experienced of us on 12, like Rick and so. And we rang up all right. That was in the beginning of 1963. Then Derek started feeling not well. When it came to the summer, he had to stand out on what was to be a successful 40,000. And he stood out as an umpire, but Rick Shawcross took his place at quite a last minute. I'd been away all summer on the course, and I came back to find that Derek was quite full. And I did bring one more thing that we can see that he was really strong. He only felt, and he agreed to undertake an exploratory operation to see what was wrong. And he died of it. So that just completely flattened everything that we planned, etc. And spliced in Manchester, just about ground to a halt. But that's why Norman Smith came back in. Because although he didn't like bringing on 8 and 12, and he's running one of the boys, but not in any of the matches. He started doing his series, which started with 7 and 8 methods, but then extended and they built up to the 24 methods. And that took some time, months perhaps. And then for some reason, he didn't go on 24 when the natural was a 6-part composition. So the natural end to a 6-part composition of Meyer was 27 methods, 24. And that was because Norman was then married and really had family. Whether the band that was ringing with him broke up for whatever reason, somebody told me, I don't know. And 27 methods was on for several years, and I have an exhibit here. I have 2 exhibits, actually. I have 2 letters here. You recognize the writing? Written to Mr. Norman Smith.
Yes.
Yes. I've got your letters to him, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but I haven't got his reply to you. And Michael has written, at that time, Michael, speak himself if you like to, Michael had run up to 24 methods with his band in Surrey. And had wondered, like many other people, whether there was a 27. And so he wrote to Norman and say, first of all, to ask, have you got the intermediate numbers between, Norman didn't bring every single number between 12 and 24, only like some of them. Michael asked, had he got competition for the others? And did he have one for 27? No, of as I say, I've got don't know what Norman said to it, but there was a second letter a few months later to say, thank you very much, and yes, we've scored it. Might have been at the second letter.
I'm sure it was.
Yes, it was in the effort. And so that was the first time that this 27 was done. And I'll tell you now why I know this. When Norman died earlier this year, I was in touch with his son, Richard, who happens to live in the West Midlands, in Sedgley. And he said, he sent me an email to say, in Norman's loft in Burnley, well, Silverstone outside Burnley, there's a box with all his ringing memorabilia. Would you like to have it? Look through it, discard what you don't want, put into any library you think is appropriate, anything you think is worth keeping. I said, oh, thank you very much. I'll pop over on the train and I'll pick it up. He said, I don't think you'll be able to take it on the train. So the box is about this big. Jill and I went over in the summer and had lunch in just outside Stourbridge with him and his wife Sandra, and that was an occasion. So I've come back with this box, which I've looked through, and there's over 78 of ringing that were in vogue at the time, and lots and lots of paperwork, compositions, even booklets, some compositions, so trying to put some of them onto composition library. But there was some correspondence as well. There were these two letters, and I'm sorry to bring them along. I wasn't going to say it now, I was going to show them over the meal later on, but no, it's come up now. So that explains why there was, not why, but how the 27 came to life, because it may never have come to life. You might well have written to them, because this was after, by the time Michael wrote, 1970, 69, 70, Norman had virtually didn't ring. So the composition may never have come to the light of day without one. So that all happened up to 24 in about 1965, 64, 65. Neil Bennett, who'd been a great friend, Derek Collins, decided that Derek's memory ought to be secured by using the work that he'd done to get the 18 methods. So he's put pen to bed and started working on obviously the Maximus, the extended project into form, and then onwards from there. And just as he was doing that, Norman had one last case to play, and decided, and again, I've got the exhibit here, but some of you would remember was Neil Bennett wrote an article in the Ringing Book in 2007, which described the background to the 23-year-old war, and published for the first time nationally 3 compositions of plain mold, where there were 7 parts, and each part end was a lead end for the plain course. When we're making that, you know, they do the method that we have written. And realized that if you could get 23 methods and come back to a lead end of plain mold and ring that 7 times, everybody would have to ring each lead once and only once. And his band was based on Birmingham, and at Birmingham, an old friend of his, Walter Wilkinson, who ran with all the way through. Richard Parker was someone I think that normally not taught, certainly had influenced significantly. Richard was then at the University of Birmingham. So that's 3 of them there. And he was also very friendly with Cyril Crossway. Cyril had done a lot with Norman. At the time, I was engaged to Cyril's daughter, Alan. So Norman and Cyril said, well, Marlon and John were ready, Philip was, Alan's brother could ring as well. And so that made 7. And there it was for 28. And he said, I'm going to try and put these some methods into the second part. And he came up with, first of all, with 13 methods. And I went for it twice, lost it twice. And we lost it because, not particularly because we weren't on the methods, but because there was so much tennis particles we weren't used to. But it was just so different that we sort of stumbled with it. Then Derek Butterworth had to move his job and he went to Scotland. He decided to ask Neil in Bennington. Also in this big box, there's a letter from Neil to Norman in October of 1966 saying Derek and John have said we'd like to ring some unusual, include me in some unusual slides of people for which the utmost silence is required. And I went on to say when he was available and that sort of thing. So Neil came along and we made this time 15 methods and lost that. Then we went for 16 methods in score. And that in the middle of November 1966. So we only started in the beginning of October. Then scored the first one. And we were lost one more, 18, then by 19, 21, 23, all in the space of a week. Maintained our silence about it all the time until we scored the 27. Then got this about it. That's where it went, and we were ecstatic about it. Norman was not particularly an excitable person, but he clearly was pleased that we were overjoyed. And he went on to produce some oil, but he only ran in one of those. So that's the story. And of course, it's changed the way we think about spice.
Amazing that you were in that.
Well, it was. Fortuitous for another reason. It was I was engaged to Marlon. That was just a pause at that point because in 1961. So the Peter Schofield arrangement with Yorkshire and Lancashire was sort of changed a bit. I was going to university. Jill and I ceased being quite as close as we were. Jill started going out with a lot, so. I don't know when Jill and Ron got engaged, but they got married in 1957, and Meryl and I got married in 1957. Not what happened, it's probably great to feel work. I'm not sure whether we knew before that or whether we sent each other invitations to our wedding. It turned out we were both got married at the same day. It's the month in 1967. So we couldn't go to each other's wedding as we would otherwise the other, which is a bit of a shame. So now that we are married, we've both been married on the same day twice.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So that's a little bit of history there. What else can I say?
So we Neil, and this was maximum.
Yes, Neil started to, I'd say, just at the time that we were starting the 23, although that didn't take long. In the big scheme of things, we're only talking about the most 6 months. And in the middle of all that, we ran the 24 Splash Maximus that they were put together. And we carried on, and we ran 30 methods, 35 methods. And we ran a 40 method at Liverpool Cathedral. 2 other tenor, left run and the result.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
They are doing.
Well, that's right. That's right. And we've been then talking about, well, I suppose, 1969, possibly 68. The first feeling was the feeling was on 65 or 64. So, it was, and then we were considered not something you go to bring for pleasure. It was just something to tick off the book that was going to have as well. So it was a fair achievement. But Neil was working, so was I suppose. Because I was working in the middle, and that was another reason that fortuitous that the 23 work, because I've been working since September 1965, and I was on a graduate apprentice scheme. And they wanted me to go and reach for to Manchester. So in September of 1966, and I probably haven't even heard of this, the 23 work. There I was back at home in Tottenham living with my parents. We weren't married. And the marriages hadn't taken place at that point. And so I was available as well as being through sort of the hours to the 23. What's probably going to say then, but so yes, I was able to move back up there just at the same time as the 23 was being going.
So the Maximus, so we got to Liverpool Cathedral and we announced that, but it went on and developed further, didn't it?
It did, and it slowly built up after the 40, around 50, then 60, and then 75. And I'd been by that time helping Neil to put the methods in. None of us were, what do you call them, composers. And so it was a tedious pencil and paper exercise, no computers. Except that, through my contacts with Tony and Pete, where we started doing a few long videos of all the work based on Norman's 23. I met Jim Disley. And Jim worked, but he had access to a mainframe computer. And so I said to him one day, "Group propositions. You mind putting these compositions into your computer and checking them?" And I can remember the day the letter came through the letterbox to say, "Whoops, I'm sorry. 2 of the compositions are false. You might have it." Hold my hand up. So 2 appeals that had already gone. That was the result. But we carried on and we ran. We did between the 60 and the 75 again. I think we went straight to 10 and to 5, which is 5,040, and then 110, which is 5,000. And that was from, I think, 1969.
Do those sites still be
Are they still?
the record number of methods for matches?
Yes, I think so. Well, you would have to ring a long repeat. And I think if a long repeat is really well, you wouldn't choose to put more methods, you would choose to maximize the music and so forth. And nowadays, there's a lot more effort put into getting the right sort of music for the composition than there used to be. Compositions held ringing back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Now, computers that churn out compositions by putting in a few parameters. To some extent, the ring is having to run to catch up. And some of the articles recently in the ring about the effort that people are having to put in to ring some of these things that they want to do very complicated things. It's quite phenomenal. Alan Redding mentioned it something the other week. Simon Lee picked up on it and did the maths and said, you know, that's having to spend as much time as that.
They must have taken still quite a lot of them.
For us, it did, yes, because bringing pre-dependent maximus, simple stuff. Even if you put in one lead or something that was quite spiky, it needed looking at it, but you could throw that in next to a field of Cambridge. But people don't shake their head and can't pick up. So yes, there were several losses. But I think nowadays people do have trained the brains to absorb the methods in a way. I think if you're handbell, I think if you're a good handbell, you look at the chance. I always think there's a connection between a good handbell and somebody who playing the piano. I mean, we did a survey about that. People might find that a lot of handbellers can actually do different things with different hands, whereas you and I tend to do things, you know,
Yes.
together.
But it was an extraordinary period in the development of that, and very much focused on that action area.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun, a lot of enthusiasm. Derek Ogden and Norman Smith were the people who pushed it forward. They needed to pull along, as it were, the masses and little times I mentioned. No, we had disaster. I was reading the other day. Derek wanted to bring a hail of fall of rock, which mirrored the Pittman's classic fall of London, Cambridge, Yorkshire, and an extended youth method to mirror the Bristol major, because Bristol Royal, although it was there, wasn't extending the hands of not considered anything people wanted to bother to learn. Absolutely not. So Dennis Patterson put together this method called Redcliffe Sheep Egg, which is an extending lead method. And he said a nice extension of Bristol nature called Redcliffe. Two false creeds in the book, or the true one. And then it was Ken Lutz. Ken Lutz was wrong. And I read the other day his apologetic lecture to say he'd be asked to ring in the field the last minute, checked the method, scrubbed it at 2 44 seconds. adjusted the composition of the human conduct and core, and gave it back to it. But in reducing the internal forces to zero, it introduced repeating the whole loop. That's very easy in extending lean methods if you're not watching what you're talking about. So we run the whole, I was in the one we lost. We ran the whole loop. I believe it was twice. And then they ran it again, but that was never published, and that was a different composition. Where the falseness happened, the internal falseness. So two disasters. But we did win the all the way. And it was just at the same time within Bradford, the band of journalism, which Leonardo put together, but Leslie Morris was the conductor. They were really surprised. And the reason that I'm not sure, they included a method called Manchester. Fairly simple extending lean method. Not too far, I think you can, but I'm not doing it injustice. And there's a nice got Bittman to extend it so that the work extend the three methods, standard three methods that include Rochester, it supplies. And then we came along just at the same time by extending lean method readily in a field of force supplies. So Bittman out of York to his four method proposition gave it to Leslie Morris, and they ran it about 90 to 63. But I don't think there were any further extensions of the Royal or the work achievements until the 9 months, based on the other set I mentioned again.
Yes, I was wondering whether anybody, so for the purpose of those that are watching, we do have some people here like Michael Cherry and John referred to earlier and Tony Hench, whether anyone's got any questions they might like to ask. Which of the stages in drawing those really supplies major oil maximums and why?
No, I think the 23-year-old work was the most satisfying because we knew it was breaking the new ground, whereas just having a few methods, even major or land or accidents, didn't actually achieve anything except taking the lot to be there first. But the old work, the 23-year-old work, I think was more satisfying because it was completely breaking the character. And had we thought at that point how it would change the way that supplies could ever again, the old work, we would have been even more humble, as it were. But yes, that is probably what I enjoy about it, even though it comes to go, as I say, 6 months. But we're doing with Tony P and John Mayer's on the program, the 20-year-old work Simon. Within that, this big box of Norman Smith is a letter from me to Norman saying, how about we bring all the work in language, but he didn't work. But Tony P on that. Also a letter from John's cancer, who challenged, but questioned how Norman done the checking for the 23rd. I've made some personal suggestions of how the best way to do it, which I thought was, I mean, just it's a bit like climbing Everest, you get there, and then some fellow saying, well, if you go that way around, it'd be more easier.
rating. There's no other thoughts from anyone. I think I just going to say thank you ever so much. It's been absolutely fascinating. What an amazing time. And giving you time. So
I'll just say one more thing that I'm putting on
of
the
course you get.
in these exhibits. Look again. Nobody else in the world has ever seen these. No, I don't know what they are. But they were in this big box and all this. And there's something called dancing sticks. And no one was a carpenter, so the wood came easily. But on these 8 square sticks, you won't be able to see, and even if I show it to the camera, you won't easily be able to see. But 3 sides of these sticks are covered with the figures 1 to 5. And these 8 sticks, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 changes on. So that's each stick with 15 changes. And there are 8 sticks. That's 120 changes. So the changes of numbers are all on there in particular order. Each stick starts with not necessarily with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 1, 3, 2, 4, 5 or whatever, but each one is transposed from there with the same transposition, which is seconds, fourths, firsts, fifths, thirds. Enveloped in seconds, there becomes enveloped in first there. And then there are some also I put this rubber band around the use of loose in the bottom box. Some others. These don't have the treble armor. These are the 6 guns on these, including 5, 6. And so we got the only numbers written on them are 5, 6, and 6, 5. 2 of them have got X's and 2 of them have got dots. And it almost looks to me as if these things go together. What they are, I've got no idea. And I asked the world, if you've got any ideas, please let me know.
I'm sure we will find a solution. Thank you ever so much. It's good.